I believe the actual quote was "fuck white feminism," and I stand by that. But over the holidays, when talking to my future mother-in-law, who is super, super smart and super supportive of boobies, bits, and booty, she wanted to know what I meant by that. And I completely understand why a comment like that would give somebody pause. If I hadn't have previously been exposed to the concept of white feminism over the course of my education, I would probably have been like, what in the hell is she talking about? And if I heard someone say, fuck white feminism, because it sounds like I'm condemning white women for being feminists, I would definitely, want to know more about that. I'm not condemning white women for being feminists, by the way. So I tried to explain it to her, but we were over Zoom with Evan, my partner, and my future father-in-law. So it wasn't really the right time for the conversation. But she got me thinking that she is probably not the only Boobies, Bits, and Booty listener who didn't know what white feminism was, or didn't understand what I was saying. And to hear two people wholeheartedly condemn something that has a piece of, an identity in it, that's difficult to listen to. So my intention today is to explain what white feminism is, offer up some avenues to alternatives to white feminism, and to give us some tips on how we can grow today without any waiting or prep work. So let me just start by saying this. I feel like I have to do a disclaimer on all of my episodes because I feel like I'm a Jane of all trades, but master of none. So just let me start by telling you that I am not at all perfect when it comes to, my practice, but I am growing every single day, and I'm hoping that you'll grow with me. My whiteness gives me the privilege not to have to look at issues from multiple facets and not to have to worry about how certain systems may be oppressing others. That doesn't mean I'm sitting here like, screw you and screw you and screw you. It just means that I will always, always have privilege checking to do, some learning to do, and of course, growing to do. And you, my fellow white women, are the same. Now, I'm not saying that you aren't as good as I am. I'm not saying that your neighbor is a better feminist than you. I'm not saying that you're better than such and such. No, I'm not trying to create any kind of hierarchy or division between us, because we all grow at our own pace and in our own ways. I am saying that the foundation of inclusive and intersectional feminism is realizing where you stand on spectrums of power, privilege, and oppression. So, as a white woman, I'm standing pretty far on the high end of the power and privilege spectrum. Maybe not as far over as Evan, my white male partner. Or male passing partner, I should say. But I'm certainly not oppressed in the same way that, Black women, Indigenous women, trans women, disabled women are. There's a spectrum there. But I digress. So, what is white feminism exactly? So, white feminism, in my personal opinion, boils down to assuming that all problems are individualistic and that by solving the issues facing white women, we automatically solve issues facing all women. That's actually a little bit too nice of a definition, I think. I love how Beck actually put it back in February of this year. Beck said, white feminism is a very specific ideology and practice towards achieving gender equality, which pulls considerably from colonialism, imperialism, labor exploitation, and its biggest signature, advocating individual ascension and accumulation of wealth and power as the foremost path to gender progress. So if you don't know, colonialism is one entity taking power over another, subjugating it, and causing it to become dependent on the entity in power. So consider, the American colonists who came in and messed things up for the indigenous North Americans who were already here. And then those indigenous peoples ended up becoming dependent on the colonists to survive because they were getting absolutely, wiped out. The genocide was absolutely insane. And that's, colonialism. That's where that comes from. Imperialism extends that power often through force. So if you think about Britain imperializing, parts of Africa and India, just coming in and saying, we're in charge now. Here are some viceroys. Here, actually other European countries did that to countries on other continents too, not just Britain. But there you have that. So white feminism really, it depends on keeping the status quo, because we've already experienced colonialism here in America, and a lot of our systems are dependent on that. Same with imperialism. So white feminism is keeping everything the same. So white people and our systems continue to dominate the U.S., and white feminism really, it ensures the continued proliferation of these systems. So essentially, white feminism asks all femfolk to aspire to be like cis hetero women in status, asking them to exist in a system that disproportionately benefits white women, while other types of femmes get left in the dust. It's things like, just work hard. We're solving the pay gap. The glass ceiling gets shattered every single day. Women can vote now. Yay. It's those kinds of sentiments that ring throughout white feminism. It's failure to account for additional oppressions that are facing, femfolk who aren't cis, hetero, white women. For example, women can vote, but, maybe not if you live in a place where the voting, ID requirements are particularly strict, not even particularly strict. They could just ask for forms of ID that aren't readily available to every single person. What if you don't have a way to get to a DMV to get a photo ID? What if your credit score isn't good enough to have things put in your name and have bills sent to your house? These are very real issues that women everywhere face, but white feminism ignores it because we got the right. The right is there. That's it. Stick a fork in it. It's done. And, consider motherhood in the white feminist lens. Consider the ease in which some of us can get safe birth control, but some of us can't. And consider that maternity leaves, those are a huge point of contention for working women in the U.S. How often do we hear about our maternity and also paternity leaves in comparison to the seemingly luxuriously long European-style parental leaves? We talk about it all the time. The issue here is that when we're talking about parental leaves, we're talking about a very specific set of women workers in the United States. We're talking about the benefits that you get at a large corporation for people higher up in the executive pecking order, even middle management, really, we're talking about. But you know who we're not talking about? Parents in the service industry who are making minimum wage or below that. We're not talking about folks in entry-level positions at small to mid-sized companies. And we're certainly not talking about women and femfolk who have multiple children in rapid or even slow succession. The fight for decent parental leaves pretty much totally ignores the lower working class. And what about mothers who are unemployed? It's no secret that society holds a certain view of stay-at-home moms in various situations. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. The mother who has children that they care for because dad is at work, she can afford to stay home, versus the mother who stays home because she can't afford childcare or because there isn't another parent or support system to stay home. It's very easy to have different opinions about those situations. In any situation that isn't the American heteronormative stay-at-home June Cleaver situation, gets overlooked in white feminism. Now, am I saying you shouldn't stay home if that's an option for you? Absolutely not. That works for a great many families. What I'm saying is, if you think one kind of stay at home mom is acceptable and another kind isn't, you're practicing white feminism. And that's also kind of fucking rude. So I'd backtrack and knock it off a little bit. White feminism also offers up a kind of shield of victimhood for white women. White feminism puts a lot of blame on white men for their role in patriarchal oppressive systems, but leaves very little to no room for examination of the white woman herself. And make no mistake, white women, we are complicit in white supremacy, even if we don't hold racist, homophobic, transphobic, ableist, all those really cruel ideologies, even if we don't hold those ideologies as true, we're still complicit in white supremacy every single day. So let's be real for a second. White women, with some exception, vote white men into office over and over and over again. If you don't believe me, let me direct you to Google. But also, we could have voted in Margaret White, a Black woman, in 1976 for president. We could have voted in Lenora Fulani in 1988 or 92. And you know what else? We have a lot of love for Kamala Harris right now, which great. A lot of love for the vice president. This is awesome. But if you really want to know the truth, if she had been supported earlier on, she could have run for president. It was very early on in the electoral process. So maybe some people weren't even aware that she was running for president because she didn't do great in her own home state. But we still let her become vice president instead of president. So tell me again how we're not complicit in, patriarchal systems. We keep voting in white men almost every single time. We failed because we're on the whole fine with the patriarchy, even though, men sexually harass us and assault us, even though men put us down, even though most men still make more than us in same work situations, we still let the patriarchy win on a pretty regular basis. We don't think much about the systems of oppression that they represent because our white partners, they're the community leaders who are getting elected. They're the landlords, and they are the bosses. White feminism is convenient because we can still have complaints, we can still have gripes, but we don't have to deal with the deep systemic oppression that makes our complaints chronically detrimental.